My wife and her best friend's brother, who's a lawyer, secretly forged my signature to steal $150, $0 worth of our family estate, then turned around and sued me for financial misconduct. I never saw it coming. I never thought I'd be the guy to get like this. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about my wife, Lisa. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 5, building a life that seemed solid. Good job, nice house, 2 kids. But then one day, everything shattered in a way I never saw coming. The moment that changed everything happened so suddenly, it's like I blinked and the world I knew was gone. It started with little things. Lisa started acting distant, avoiding my gaze, snapping at me over minor stuff. She'd come home late from work, claiming she was just stuck in meetings or running errands. But one night, I caught her sneaking her phone out of her purse when she thought I wasn't looking. Her fingers paused over the screen, and I saw a message pop up from some guy named Mike. It was casual at first, just, "Hey, what's up?" But then I saw the way she quickly deleted the message, her face flushing. That's when I felt a prick of suspicion. Then came the texts. I started noticing her phone was always on silent, her messages more frequent, and her excuses more flimsy. She'd say she was just talking to her sister or a client from work, but I knew better. The way she'd look at her phone with that guilty expression like she was hiding something, it gnawed at me. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. One particular day, I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I know, trust is supposed to be there, but I was desperate for the truth. I found a string of texts between her and Mike, talking about meeting up after hours, plans to spice things up, and even talk about how good it feels to be with someone who really cares. My stomach sank. It was more than just flirtation, it was an outright affair. The worst part was the way she'd lied so convincingly, telling me she loved me, that I was her world. Turns out, I was just a cover for her secret. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to process what I found. But every time I saw her, I felt like I was living with a stranger. The woman I married, the woman I trusted with everything, had been cheating on me for months. Not just cheating, but sneaking around, lying, betraying our vows. I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and utter betrayal. It was like the ground beneath me was crumbling and I didn't know how to hold on. And then there was the money. Turns out, Lisa had been secretly forging my signature to steal hundreds of thousands from our family estate. She'd teamed up with her best friend's brother, Mark, who's a lawyer. They cooked up some story about needing funds for an emergency. And somehow, she managed to funnel $150, $0 out of our accounts without me noticing. I found bank statements, forged documents, all hidden in a safe she kept locked. I couldn't believe she'd go that far, steal from her own family, betray her vows, and lie to my face every day. That's when I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just sit back and let her keep lying, stealing, and playing me for a fool. I started planning my revenge, but I'll tell you more about that in a bit. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out how the woman I loved so much could turn into someone so cold and manipulative. It's like I was living with a different person all along, and I never saw it coming. Once I uncovered everything, her betrayal, the forged signatures, the stolen money, I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind was racing, trying to process how someone I trusted implicitly could do something so calculated and cruel. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. That kind of anger burns deep, and it's hard to contain when you realize you've been played for a fool for so long. I spent nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself how I missed all the signs. There were little moments, her avoiding my gaze, her sudden interest in her phone, the way she'd get defensive when I asked about her whereabouts. But I always dismissed it as work stress or her being tired. I never thought she'd lie about something so huge, let alone steal from us. The money she took, 150, was a lot, and now I was looking at the possibility that she'd done it with her best friend's brother, Mark. That guy's a slick lawyer, and I found out he'd been helping her forge my signature. They cooked up some story about an investment opportunity, but I knew better. It was a scam, plain and simple. The betrayal hit me hardest when I realized she'd been planning this for months. All the late nights, the secret meetings, the fake smiles, I saw it all now. She'd been lying to my face, convincing me everything was fine while she was lining her pockets and sneaking around behind my back. The worst part, she kept telling me she loved me, that I was her everything. I'd been blind to it all. I remember confronting her that night. I found her in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with some paperwork. I slammed the door behind me and just let her have it. I told her I knew about the affair, the stolen money, the forged signatures. Her face twisted into this bitchy, defensive sneer. She spat out that I was overreacting, that it was all a misunderstanding, that I was paranoid. She said she loved me, but she needed more excitement and more passion, which is why she cheated. She insisted she was doing it all because I was boring and stuck in the same routine. Listening to her lie so effortlessly made my blood boil. I told her she was selfish, that she destroyed everything we built, that I couldn't trust her anymore. She shrugged and said I was just jealous, that I was paranoid. She even accused me of being controlling, like I was the one at fault. It was clear she had no remorse, just more lies. That moment was like a punch to the gut. I'd always thought we had a good marriage, but now I saw how deep her betrayal went. Emotionally, I was wrecked. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I couldn't believe the woman I loved had turned into this manipulative, lying thief. I'd never felt so lost in my life. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see it coming. And then the anger took over. I wanted revenge, not just to hurt her, but to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. I decided I'd fight back, take back what was ours, and make sure she paid for her betrayal. In the days that followed, I started gathering evidence, talking to lawyers, and planning my next move. I knew her cheating was just the tip of the iceberg. There was the money, the forged signatures, the lies. I felt like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I saw her, I saw the woman I'd loved, but also the woman who had betrayed everything sacred. It was a hard pill to swallow, realizing that the person I trusted most in this world had become my biggest enemy. I also learned that I wasn't alone in this. My friends and family could see I was hurting, and some of them even suspected what was going on. But I kept everything quiet at first. I needed time to process, to plan, to figure out how I was going to fight back. I knew I had to act fast if I wanted to salvage what was left of my dignity and my estate. I couldn't let her get away with it, not after everything, so I started putting my plan into motion, one step at a time. This was the point where I realized that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair, and that sometimes the people you think are your closest allies turn out to be your enemies in disguise. I had no idea how deep her lies ran, but I was determined to find out, and then make her regret ever crossing me. After I gathered enough evidence, bank statements, forged signatures, her text messages, I knew I had to take action. Sitting on all this proof, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I finally had the truth, and dread because I knew this was about to blow up my entire life. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife anymore. I was facing betrayal on a scale I never imagined. My first step was to consult a lawyer. I found a guy named David, straightforward, no nonsense, and familiar with family law and financial crimes. I laid everything out: her affair, the stolen money, the forged signatures. David looked over the evidence, then looked me in the eye and said, "You've got a solid case, but this is going to get ugly. She's probably got some more tricks up her sleeve. You need to be prepared for a fight." I nodded, feeling the weight of it all settle over me. I knew I couldn't just go to her and demand answers. No, this was legal, and I had to be strategic. I decided to set a trap. I didn't want her to know I was onto her, at least not yet. I started subtly monitoring her. I installed hidden cameras around the house, kept tabs on her phone activity, and even hired a private investigator to follow her. I needed to catch her in the act, or at least get undeniable proof of her ongoing lies. I also contacted the bank and froze the accounts that had been secretly drained. I wanted to make sure she couldn't move any more money without my knowledge. Meanwhile, I kept pretending everything was normal. I still played the loving husband, trying to keep the peace while secretly gathering everything I could. It was surreal. One moment I was planning my next move, the next I was sitting at the dinner table, acting like nothing was wrong. I couldn't let her see I was onto her. I needed her to slip up to give me something I could use against her. The more I watched, the more I saw how manipulative she was. She'd go out with friends, but I knew she was meeting Mike or Mark. The texts kept confirming it. That's when I realized how deep her deception went. One night I caught her sneaking out after she told me she was going to a girls' night. I followed her in secret. She drove to a secluded parking lot, met up with Mike, and they went into a motel. I watched through the window as they kissed and started to get intimate. That was the moment I knew I had enough proof. It wasn't just talk or texts anymore, it was real. I felt a cold fury rise inside me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was outright cheating, and she was doing it right under my nose. The next morning I confronted her. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money, the forged signatures. Her face twisted into that same bitchy sneer, and she everything, claiming I was paranoid and jealous. She told me I was overreacting, that this was just a misunderstanding, and that I was ruining everything. She had the audacity to say she loved me, that she was only doing this because she felt neglected, bored, and unappreciated. She spun her web of lies, trying to make me doubt what I knew was real. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I looked her dead in the eye and told her she had two choices: come clean and face the consequences, or keep lying and see how far I was willing to go to expose her. Her reaction was a mix of anger and frustration. She stormed out of the room, cursing, claiming I was abusive and controlling. But I didn't care. I had what I needed. The truth was out, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. That day marked a turning point. It was the moment I decided I wasn't going to sit around and let her destroy everything I worked so hard for. I knew I had to protect my assets, my reputation, and my sanity. So I started talking to lawyers, financial advisors, and even a private investigator to lay the groundwork for what was coming next. I had a plan to take her down, to make her pay for her lies and betrayal. The emotional was intense. I went from feeling devastated to furious, then to determined. It was like my whole world was collapsing around me, but I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me. I had to keep my head clear, because I knew that once I started fighting back, there was no turning back, and I was ready for whatever came next. By the time I had all my evidence in place, I knew I couldn't delay any longer. The betrayal was too deep, and the damage was too extensive. I sat down with David again, going over every detail, every forged signature, every lie, every stolen dollar. We devised a plan to confront Lisa officially, but I also needed to be prepared for the legal fallout. The last thing I wanted was her spinning some sob story to the authorities or trying to turn things around. I decided to serve her with papers, divorce papers, a cease and desist on the money, and a detailed account of the financial misconduct. I wanted her to understand that I was serious, that I wasn't going to let her walk all over me or get away with stealing from our family. I also made arrangements to have the bank freeze any remaining accounts she could access, and I started gathering affidavits from witnesses, friends, family, anyone who could confirm her pattern of deception. The day I served her, she was furious. She stormed into the living room, tearing up the papers, screaming that I was ruining everything, that I was paranoid and controlling. She yelled that I didn't understand her, that she was stressed and frustrated, but I wasn't buying any of it. I told her I knew about the affair, the stolen money, and the forged signatures. Her face went pale for a moment, then she turned into a bitchy sneer, claiming I was just jealous and insecure. She spat at me that I was a terrible husband, that I didn't deserve her, and that I'd regret trying to ruin her. That confrontation was a turning point. I saw her true colors: selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own benefit. The woman I'd loved was gone, replaced by someone who only cared about herself. I felt a strange mix of relief and disgust. Relief because I finally had the proof I needed to fight back, and disgust because I realized how deep her deception went. In the aftermath, I started to feel a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't just fighting for my money or my marriage, I was fighting for my dignity. I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation, spin lies, and maybe even turn the kids against me, but I was prepared. I hired a counselor to help me process everything and started documenting every interaction, every lie she told, every attempt she made to twist the story. Meanwhile, Lisa was trying to spin her narrative to friends and family, claiming I was abusive or crazy, that I was trying to control her. But I had the evidence and I wasn't afraid to show it. I made sure everyone knew the truth. She had betrayed me, stolen from us, and was now trying to manipulate her way out of it. I didn't want her to get away with it, and I was determined to hold her accountable. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, hurt, and angry, but I also felt a strange sense of empowerment. I wasn't going to let her destroy what we had built without a fight. I knew this was just the beginning, but I was ready. I had to be. I had to protect myself, my kids, and what was left of my reputation. The next step was to go to court, to get the legal justice I deserved and make her face the consequences of her actions. I never thought my life would come to this point. I was, yes, but I also realized how fragile trust is and how quickly it can be shattered. I learned that some people are capable of hiding their true nature until it's too late. And I learned that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight back hard and not let anyone, not even your wife, take everything from you. The court date was set, and I knew I had to be fully prepared. All my evidence, bank statements, forged documents, text messages, witness affidavits, was organized and ready. I hired a top-notch lawyer, someone who specialized in family law and financial crimes, to make sure I had the best shot at getting justice. I was determined to expose Lisa for who she really was, someone capable of betrayal, theft, and lies on an unprecedented scale. The day of the hearing, I felt a mixture of anxiety and resolve. Sitting in that courtroom, I watched her walk in with that same bitchy sneer, trying to act like she was innocent. But I knew better. I had everything on her. When the judge called her to testify, I saw her stumble for a moment, trying to maintain her composure. But the evidence was irrefutable. The forged signatures, the stolen money, her secret meetings with Mike and Mark, everything was laid out in front of everyone. I as well, detailing how her actions had devastated our family. I explained how she'd lied, cheated, and stolen, not just from me but from our children's future. I saw her try to deny everything, but the judge wasn't having it. My lawyer presented the evidence with confidence, and I could see the look of guilt and panic on her face. At one point, she even tried to spin some sob story about how she was doing it for us, that she was just stressed and lost. But her words fell flat against the facts. The judge didn't hold back. After reviewing everything, he ordered her to return the stolen money, which she tried to claim she'd spent on emergency needs. But the court was having none of it. He also awarded me full custody of the kids, since her behavior was clearly unstable and manipulative. The final nail in the coffin was the ruling that she was to pay restitution for the stolen funds and face potential criminal charges for forgery and fraud. Watching her reaction was almost satisfying. She looked stunned, then furious. She yelled, calling the entire process a witch hunt, and tried to threaten me, but the court was firm. She was ordered to stay away from the bank accounts in our home. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, knowing that I'd finally taken control of the situation. But I also felt a deep sadness, because I knew this meant the end of our marriage, the end of what I thought was a life built on trust. In the days that followed, I started the process of rebuilding. I filed for divorce, began the legal proceedings to recover the stolen money, and worked on healing myself and my kids. I also cut ties with Lisa completely. I couldn't have her in my life anymore, not after everything she put us through. I knew I'd have to be vigilant, that she might try to fight back or manipulate her way out of this, but I was prepared. The aftermath was brutal. The betrayal had cut so deep that I questioned everything: my judgment, my trust, my ability to love again. But I also realized something important. I had survived. I'd faced the worst kind of betrayal and come out the other side stronger. I learned that some people are capable of incredible deception, but justice can prevail if you're willing to fight for it. Looking back, I see how naive I was to think that love and trust could protect everything. But I also see that sometimes the truth needs to come out, no matter how painful. I hope anyone reading this understands that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and the only way to protect yourself is to stay vigilant, be honest with yourself, and never be afraid to fight for what's right. Because in the end, you're the only one who truly has your back. After everything's settled, after the court decisions, the divorce finalized, and the stolen money returned, I found myself in a strange place. I won the legal battle, but the emotional scars lingered. Trust, once broken so thoroughly, is not easily mended. I spent months trying to piece my life back together, focusing on my kids, my job, and rebuilding my sense of self. The betrayal had shaken me to my core, but I realized I was stronger than I thought. One thing I learned through all of this is how important it is to pay attention to the little signs, those subtle hints that something's wrong. I also learned that people are capable of hiding their true nature behind a mask for a long time. Lisa was good at lying, at manipulating, and at convincing herself she was justified in her actions. But eventually, the truth always comes out. And when it does, it's better to face it head-on than to keep living in denial. Looking back, I can see how naive I was to think that love alone could protect us from betrayal. I trusted her completely, and that trust was exploited. But I also realized that trusting someone doesn't mean ignoring the signs or turning a blind eye. It's about being honest with yourself and recognizing when things are off. If I had done that earlier, maybe I could have prevented some of the pain. But I also understand that sometimes you need to go through hell to truly learn how to value yourself. Now, I focus on moving forward. I've started seeing a therapist to help process everything and to rebuild my confidence. I've also become more cautious about who I trust and how I handle my finances. I don't let anyone take me for granted anymore. My kids are my anchor. They're what keep me grounded and remind me every day why I fought so hard to expose the truth. Watching them grow and thrive despite everything has been the greatest gift. To anyone who might be going through something similar, I want to say this. Don't ignore the signs and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Betrayal hurts deeply, but it doesn't have to define you. You're stronger than you think. Sometimes the only way to reclaim your life is to confront the darkness head-on, no matter how painful it is. Trust is fragile, but resilience is even stronger. And in the end, the truth will set you free, if you're willing to face it.